Actually, I think my parents like
Oh,
are
we're live.
either leaving now or just left for Spain. So you tag back and they tag in or something like that.
And we're talking about Spain because that's where I went.
Yeah,
But we're going to talk about the OGL because that's what people are here to talk about. Let's see. Are we live? Can people see us? Let's see.
let's find out.
I don't even know. I'm not even like in the channel. Let's
Yeah, I need to
see.
make sure that I get past
You
the
tag back.
Oh, there we
ads.
go. I see us. So, hey everybody. We're back. I went away on vacation for 2 weeks to Spain and I did not want to come back ever.
You
Like-
just want to stay in Spain?
Oh God, it was so nice. I've been to a lot of places, but everyone's like, "Oh my God, Spain's so nice." It was so amazing. I loved it. And then the weirdest part is I went to Madrid, and then someone wrote me today asking because there was an issue with the shipping of their book, and it was from Madrid. And I wrote him. I said, "Dude, if you wrote me just a little bit sooner, I could have hand delivered your books to you in Madrid. I would have brought it with you and given it to you, which would have been funny." He's like, "Oh, instead I have to ship it to you." So the paella, I actually took a paella course, and there was a course in Barcelona where me and my son made seafood paella. There was 8 different types of paella. There was like squid ink paella, seafood, meat, and vegetarian. 2 different types of meat and vegetarian stuff.
There
and
you
then
go.
we made it with people who were paella experts, and then we all sat around and drank and ate it.
So if they had asked that question last time before you left, you would not have had a background in paella. But now that they did, you have a background in paella.
I have a
too.
background in eating paella, not in making it.
Well, now you have one in making it, I guess.
That's
Since you
true.
took a paella course. Most people have not taken a paella course with paella experts in Barcelona.
It was, yeah, that was cool. And we had a ton of tapas. That was what we mostly had. And the funny thing is, so, and I know I didn't want to get into it too much, but so in Barcelona, I didn't know this, but the very first day we're there, I went to, there's like an Arc de Triomphe in Barcelona, and there was like one geek store and another geek store and another, and they're all next to each other. I'm like, what's going on here? And I looked it up. It's called like the Geek Triangle, and there's like nothing but geeky stores. And I went into them, and sure enough, I sent Mark pictures of the Pathfinder core rulebook in Spanish. And the weird part is when I was standing there taking the picture, someone walked up with the employee asking about it and then bought it. So I was like, that was weird. Like right then and there. And the comic book, there's a comic book store in Barcelona. Probably the nicest, and trust me, there's nice comic book stores in Manhattan. This was easily the nicest comic book store I've ever seen. And there probably were 200 people in this store in like the middle of the day on a Thursday. I'm like, what is going on, man? And it was packed. I was like, hundreds of people in this store buying comics. So, yeah, it was nice. It was just like, and then I went from one store to the next, and it was just like, they're all right next to each other. And I was like, they don't have that. It's like, it's so nice. In Manhattan, there's one store, and that's it. And the Complete Strategist, and it is a kind of a dump. It's kind of a terrible store. There's actually no geek stores within 200 really miles of New York City because the rent's too high. So you got to go to like middle of nowhere, New Jersey or Pennsylvania, where it's much cheaper. Those areas you got tons of stores, but not where I am. But here you go. You go to like Barcelona, you go to Madrid. In France, there was a lot of great stores, but anyhow. So yeah, I went to Spain, and everything was automated. What did you do, Mark? Did you do anything?
Well, I took some time off because
You took a paella class.
I didn't take a paella class.
Okay.
I just took some time off because up until then I had only taken national holidays off. So I took a week for vacation.
Did I say you could take time off? I don't remember.
What?
Did I say you could take time off? I don't remember.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Uh,
I don't remember. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
but I got some of the games that you had recommended at other times from
Oh, you did?
Family for Gifts. So I played some Triangle Strategy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I told you, it takes like 3 hours to really get into it, but once you get into
I
it,
remember you said that, and I was expecting it would have like a million movies at the beginning of it, but it did have a fight almost right away.
it's very heavy, but once it gets going, it really gets going, and it's
Yeah,
really
it's
good.
definitely heavy. It's definitely a little slow, and there definitely is a significant portion that I might be just coming out of where it's just like, we will give you moral dilemmas, and no matter what you do, everything is going to turn out terribly for you. Like, you're going to not die, but everything's just going to get worse
No,
and worse.
there's a lot of branching, especially in the end. In the end, it's like there's significant branching in this game. Let me tell you.
Yep.
So what other games did you play?
So I've been playing that. I got Persona 5, but I haven't started it yet. I want to wait and
Persona
start
5.
it later.
Yeah, you need a good 100+ hours on that one.
Yeah, right.
It is good, but it's good. But even I'm like, oof, this is long. This game is long. It just keeps going. You're like 50 hours in. You're like, oh, okay. You're unlocking like your eighth character, and you still know you got like another 10 to go. And you're like, man, this game just won't stop. But it's good.
Yep.
It's really good.
Those are, I think, the main ones that I got.
Yeah, I actually am still playing Tales from Arise. I'm like halfway through
cool.
it. So, but there's a lot of good ones coming up. I think we should just do a video game podcast. I think every week, so those of you new, like we talk about our stuff in gaming, and then we'll get into the topic in a few more minutes. If those of you who are watching this later, you can just jump ahead. But yeah, Midnight Suns, really? 25 North? I got such meh reviews on that, and I like Firaxis a lot, but the thing is, my time is so valuable that unless it is a game that is like an absolute monster A+ game, I don't bother anymore. But with that being said, there's the One Piece game coming out. So I started to read One Piece comic. And that's because I'm like, okay, anything this popular must be kind of good. And I've always been interested, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, I'm not blown away, but I do see the appeal. And the video game,
it just keeps going.
What?
It's long. It just
I know,
keeps going.
I know. The video game does look good, and it's by the same company that did Dragon Quest, and so it definitely has that Dragon Quest look and feel. And so I know that they do a really good job. So I was like, very interested. And then of course there's the new Fire Emblem game coming out only 2 weeks. Oof, that one's gonna be good because I've been following Fire Emblem since day one, like when no one was following them.
Yeah, we talked about how I think we both played Blazing Sword, the first one that came out in the US.
Dead Space, yep, they're redoing. I love Dead Space. I love Dead Space. There's a remake. There's a lot of games coming out in the next couple of weeks. I said I wasn't going to buy any more games because I have so many old ones, but it's going to be tough. What I am doing is I am waiting. I don't pre-order. I'm going to wait till reviews are out because... Oh, hey, man. Thanks for subscribing. Unless it gets really good, because like the Callisto Protocol also looked really good, and then that got terrible reviews. So I was like, good thing I didn't buy that one, you know. But yeah, I'm trying not to break my rule, but at the same time, and I said, you know, unless it's a franchise I really know and love, yeah, it's like Fire Emblem is a franchise I know and love, and Dragon Quest, even though it's not because it's one piece, but you know, it's like One Piece with Dragon Quest elements. It's kind of hard to ignore. And then what's coming out in February? There's some really good games coming out. There's so much coming out. I can't even keep up with it. I need to quit my job and just play video games full time like all those other people.
There you go.
That would be great. But for those of you who are new, welcome. You can ask questions. If you super chat us or join the channel, we'll immediately drop what we're doing and answer your question. But what we're here to do is talk about the Open Gaming License, OGL, and what it means
1.1.
to you, what it is. And there's been a lot of people talking about this. There's been a lot of videos, a lot of information. Supposedly the OGL 1.0 is supposed to come out like any second now. We might be doing a live reaction to the OGL if it comes out during the stream, because the rumor is it's supposed to come out today and like any minute now, from people in the industry that I've been talking to. So if it does come out, let me know. And Greg and I, Mark and I will look at this and give our reactions. But
I haven't seen it yet. So
I haven't seen it yet either.
I think your rumors this time were not correct about when it would come out.
Well, it's just a rumor, and it was supposed to come out at 10 Pacific or 11. So if it doesn't come out, it's supposed to come out any day now. Like it's supposed to come out any minute.
So this stream may be out of date when it comes out, but I think that it won't be as out of date as you think, because Steven has correctly predicted like a lot of moves by what's the upper management the last few times in his 100% accurate prediction thing where he's got the psychic hat on and things like that. So
I haven't been wrong yet. And the funny thing is, I predicted one D&D was going to be a closed system. They were going to monetize it to death. Yep. They were going to
market it as not being a new edition, but just being the thing that they're going to just kind of eternally stake on, and it's an end to new editions. You predicted it all.
And the funny thing is, now with this new OGL, everyone has jumped on that bandwagon and said, "Oh, they're going to monetize. They're going to do this. They're going to do." I'm like, yeah, I know. I said that.
To be fair,
I said that 6 months ago. I knew they were going to do that.
WotC execs have basically confirmed that you were right when they said to the shareholders or whatever, like, D&D is under monetized. So they literally said those words. That is not me paraphrasing, that is what they said. So you were definitely right that they're going to monetize it more, because if they think it's under monetized, then they're going to monetize it more.
Okay, it says Dungeons and Dragons executives think, quote, the brand is really under monetized. So
yes,
the last couple of weeks,
really under monetized.
The last couple of weeks they had WotC had a roundtable discussion with basically bankers and the public to tell them what their future is, which was kind of weird they were doing that. And let me just give you an idea of how different things have been. The original OGL 1.0A, or 1.0 even, that's for Dungeons & Dragons 5, was created and released 10 years ago. 10 years ago, D&D was nothing. I hate to say it, but D&D was just a fringe brand that only a very small portion of the population played. Yeah.
Wasn't the 1.0 like 20 years ago?
Maybe 20. No, well, whenever 5.0 came out.
No, the current OGL is the one from third, isn't it?
No, it went up to maybe. Let's see. Wait.
Is 1.0A different than 1.0? I remember that like even lawyers can't tell much of the difference between 1.0A.
There's 1.0A, yeah, and that's what's still being existed and used. You might be right, but the point is it's from 2000. So yeah, it's even longer. So I'm looking at the OGL right now. So what the OGL allows you to do, let's just back us up for a second, is, and people don't even understand this now. This is important to understand because people just assume that you need the OGL to publish games in the Dungeons and Dragons world. You actually don't, okay? You actually don't even need the OGL. You can publish games that use the Dungeons and Dragons rules. There's just very limited or somewhat limited on what you can publish in terms of naming conventions and rules. And
Right.
that's what the OGL and then this thing called the SRD, which is the system reference document, allows you to reference and publish in your materials. Long story short, it allows you to take rules from Dungeons and Dragons and recreate them exactly in your rule set or your games.
You
That's
can
it.
use the same terminology. You can literally excerpt the entirety of it. You can just like take the magic missile spell from the SRD, and obviously the source reference document for 5e. That's new since 5e came out.
Yeah,
But,
and that
the
they actually
OGL is
update.
the same.
Yeah, they
But
update.
you could just go into there, take magic missile, and print the entire magic missile in your book, and that's okay with the OGL. Now, because the OGL gives you those opportunities, it makes things a little easier for you on that front. You do give up certain things that you could normally do if you didn't use the OGL in the OGL. It's a license, and so you are required to, for example, make some of your own stuff that you put in there open and to allow other people to get it in the same way using the OGL. You cannot use certain trademarks, specifically like the name Dungeons and Dragons is the one they're going for there.
Yep.
That you otherwise under trademark law could claim compatibility with a trademark, as long as you don't try to claim ownership of the trademark or confuse the public as to like who has the trademark or what the trademark is. So if you're like, I am company X, I'm putting this things out, and it's you can use it with Dungeons and Dragons. Let's say it's not OGL. Let's say it's like a something you use with your minis, like maybe one of those grids for a fireball template that shows you what the area of a fireball is, and you're like, and you could market that not under the OGL as saying this, you could use this in your Dungeons and Dragons game, because that would not be claiming that you own Dungeons and Dragons or that your product is Dungeons and Dragons, and that would be fine for trademark. But with OGL, you explicitly, as part of accepting the license, you give up that some of those trademark opportunities. So exactly as 25 North said in chat, many people say 5e or world's oldest role-playing game or some other euphemism for Dungeons and Dragons, because you no longer can use it with the OGL.
Correct. So that's why you never see anyone say D&D. Everyone's 5e, and everyone knows what 5e is, or everyone knows what the world's oldest role-playing game is. So with that being said, and people understanding this, hopefully, is that the OGL is just the ability to use the D&D rules and terminology in your released product. That's what it comes down to. Now, a few very important things. The OGL can never be retroactively removed. So you can publish under OGL 1.A now and forever. Okay, it can't be reactively removed. So that's never going away.
Yep. Not only that, Wizards put out an FAQ in 2004 that basically said that. And they said, like, there was FAQ, one of the questions was, well, could Wizards change the terms of the OGL to something I didn't like, and then I would be stuck? And then it was like, no, you take a look at this thing in the OGL that says you can still publish under the original OGL. It's like, we could change it, but if people, we would never change it to something if people didn't like that, because then you could just keep using the old one. So there would be no point.
So,
was essentially what they had said back in 2004.
Right. And the whole reason the OGL came about, and that I can do another whole show on, is when D&D first came out, TSR was incredibly litigious to the point that I think it was called, like, instead of TSR, it's like they sue always or right away or something like that. It was like they used the initials because they sued everyone. They were very
fan sites that were just talking about the game.
Sued everyone, and they were very, very protective of their brand. And they would sue people, and the funny thing is they actually would sue people, and they would probably lose, they being TSR, in court. But because things were different back then, and people just didn't.
I think
want...
Ollie Wright is right that it was they sue regularly.
They sue regularly. That was it. Yeah, and they sued everyone, and there was a big change with third edition where they came out with the OGL, and I won't get into it, but long story short is they came out with the OGL and letting people come out with their own content. However, they accidentally made it a little bit too open. They didn't mean for it to be as open as it turned out to be, and in fact, they sued someone in Europe, I believe it was, because they recreated first edition D&D. I'm just doing this from memory, using 3.0, 3.5 rules. And they were like, no, you can't do that. And the guy was like, yeah, I can. The OGL says I'm allowed to. They went to court and TSR lost. and then the floodgates were open. And TSR was like, uh-oh, because they didn't quite realize. They think they made a mistake, and you can't remove the OGL, so it was too late. And strangely, as usual, that was the best thing that ever happened to them. D&D probably would have died a long time ago if it wasn't for the OGL, because then everyone started to create content, and it became a pretty big secondary market. They tried to fix that with 4th edition, where they had was a GSL, and you know more about that, Mark, where it was the game something license.
The game system license, or something like that. The GSL for 4E
right
was basically, there weren't a lot of people who wanted to take it, specifically due to the fact that it had several terms that were pretty tricky for third-party publishers, and that a lot of people are worried will be in this OGL 1.1, because say what you want, but it was bad PR to be like, we're revoking, or we're no longer going to make our new game compatible with the OGL. We're going to make a new thing that's more restrictive. Whereas this time they've managed to use better PR by claiming that it was just an update 1.1 to the OGL, whereas it's at least moving the direction of the GSL in any case. But things with the GSL was that it was revocable, and Wizards could change it at any time. At which point, if you had print products, you might be forced to destroy them if they did not meet the new terms of the GSL. The GSL also originally did not allow you to use the OGL if you signed on to it, because, like Steven said, the OGL 1.0 is irrevocable. But if you sign another license that says, I promise I will never use the OGL 1.0, then they can get you to stop using the 1.0. And GSL tried to do that. They eventually got rid of that part because third parties really didn't like that.
Well, there was no third-party content for 4th edition. None.
By then it was too late to create a healthy ecosystem for third party. And besides which, even if you think that was the only deal breaker, the ability for them to change it at any time and revoke it at any time were pretty significant. Also, you had to tell Wizards about all the products you were doing, and there were other things that were going on that are more similar to this 1.1 update in some ways, but that doesn't mean 1.1 is just the GSL. We don't know how much overlap they're going to have. Yeah,
but basically the GSL killed 4th edition, and it came out right when 3.5 was doing really, really well. And because of 4th edition, Paizo was formed and Pathfinder was created. It was just literally created because they wanted to continue to make 3.5 material. So they just
I'm not even sure that's fully correct, although I was not at Paizo at the time, but it's even more relevant to this video because I think that a big part of why Pathfinder was created. Paizo was formed for a different
Oh,
reason.
no. Paizo.
Thing,
Sorry. Paizo was created for
as an
the
RPG.
magazines. Yeah.
Specifically, well, like Pathfinder was a setting because they revoked Dungeon and Dragon from Paizo, but Pathfinder RPG may have been even more directly because of the GSL.
Oh, it was
because the 4E as a system.
I was there when it came out.
3.5 versus 4th edition. I mean, there were some stories that they said they could tell more easily in 3.5, but I think that it's very possible that if the GSL had not existed and 4th had been open, that they might have kept running adventures for 4th. At the very least, they might have done both.
Yeah,
we don't really know for sure.
We'll never
because
know.
The GSL was like, we can revoke it or anything like that. They kind of had to make the Pathfinder RPG if they wanted to not like throw their fates on those really kind of changeable terms of the GSL.
Well, because if you remember, and I subscribed since like season 0, it's that Paizo was making 3.5 material, and then suddenly 4th edition came out of nowhere, so they're like, oops, all right, we'll make our own version, and 3.75, which they basically, people unofficially called it. And when that came out, I was there at Gen Con. Like, it was all people were talking about. It's like, ooh, new version of D&D called Pathfinder. Like, and the booth was madness. Like, people were buying it was
wild.
Madness.
I was at Gen Con that year too.
Yeah.
It was not easy to get
it was madness. Yeah, those
we
books,
had already bought.
Yeah, they all sold out.
No, they had our like subscriber copy, but just even going to pick it up.
Oh yeah, it was nuts.
The line went out of the hall in a way that they later like stopped lines from doing and had to like create new rules for lines, but it was a lot. And you could say that the GSL was a pretty significant component in that, because Paizo would have had to get rid of a lot of their other products potentially, and it would have been very tricky if they had signed on to the GSL. So
then 5th edition comes out, and they realize, all right, that was a big mistake, because 4th edition was kind of dead. But I'll tell you, Wizards was a weird company when 5th edition came out, because they were small. Now, when I mean they were small, they had maybe a dozen full-time people there. It's like they had almost everything.
You mean on D&D, right?
On D&D.
Because Magic was huge.
Yeah, Magic was huge, but the D&D, they had very few people. They outsourced their first adventures. They outsourced a lot of their core content, and they still did the OGL, and then the world caught up, and everyone, it's like, and then very slowly D&D started to become cool again. Technology started to advance. VTTs, which, if you think of 10 years ago, podcasts were just starting to become really popular. VTTs, and I've been using VTTs for 12 years now. They were just starting to get like sort of mainstream or like usable. But then 2 things happened. There's a little thing called Critical Role and another little thing called Stranger Things. And those 2 made D&D become household names very quickly. And then you add in a pandemic, and it's like all these things at once, and suddenly D&D blew up, and it was acceptable, it was cool. And I did a talk about this in one of my past videos. If you don't believe me, just look at Hasbro's corporate earnings and see if they ever mention the word Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering ever. The answer is no, not once. They never mention these brands until very recently. Did they even start to mention it. Think about that. They didn't even mention it once. Now they mention it all the
time.
time.
It was mentioned, it was said to be like on a tear or something like that. I remember because there was reporting about it being mentioned as on a tear.
Now,
Dungeons and Dragons is on a tear.
Yeah, now it's so big, it's its own division, and it's so big, like it's become pretty much one of the main sources of income for WotC, which is a whole other topic.
made a bunch of money, and then
for
other
Hasbro,
parts
sorry,
of
not
Hasbro lost some, like went down.
Yes, Hasbro
right?
brands lost so much money, and WotC's made so much money that people asked for them to break WotC off into its own company because they were using Magic and Dungeons and Dragons to basically subsidize their other brands, like their toy lines. So it's crazy how different things in 10 years. So what does this all have to do with the OGL 1.0? Because people are like, okay, you're giving us this whole history lesson. The reason is because it comes down to money. It really just does. It comes down to money, is that if you read the OGL 1.0, or what they're going to say is going to be 1.0.
You mean 1.1?
Sorry, 1.1. 1.1. 1.0 is already out. 1.1.
Yes.
And I have some footnotes. Let me see. I'm not going to go through everything, but I have some quick footnotes. Is that changes to OGL are not retroactive. You can still publish using 1.0A whenever you want. So you can always use 1.0A. Very important is that supposedly 1D&D is backwards compatible with 5.0, 5e. So why would anyone want to go to OGL 1.1? Well, supposedly, if you're using 1.1, then you can use content from the 1D&D SRD. What that means, I have no idea. Basically,
I think they haven't confirmed whether or not they're going to have an SRD. But they also haven't said that they aren't.
Right, so. Yeah, this is heavily assumed, but
yes.
It would make sense because they'll probably have an SRD for 1D&D, the same way they have an SRD for 5e, and then 1.0A will allow you to use 5e, and the 1.1 will allow you to use 1D&D.
That seems likely to me.
Now, supposedly they said 1.1, you'll get the use of a, quote, creator product badge. So supposedly they'll give out an official badge that you can put on your products if you use 1.1. The other thing is that if you want to use digital content or anything outside print or static media online, which is basically PDFs, you need to use OGL 1.1. What does that mean?
1.1, well, hold on. 1.1 doesn't cover digital content.
Right, it does not. It does not cover.
You're going to need to make a separate license with Wizards. Whereas 1.0, so they claimed in their press release that 1.1 was just clarifying what they already meant, that it was never covered, but you can actually find an FAQ written by Wizards that Morris from Ian World pointed out in December when this came out, where they said specifically that the OGL 1.0A was intended to include digital things that are non-static. In that case, it might be they even tried to explain to you how you can follow the OGL part about needing to put the text of your open game content in it, and they're like, source code does not count if it's not human readable. You'll have to find a way to make it be human readable in there. So it's very clear that 1.0 was meant to include digital products, and it's an interesting PR move for I see why they did it, for being like, oh, this is just kind of closing a loophole and showing that we originally only meant it for this other thing, but that's not actually what they said before. I think it's also interesting good PR for them to say that it was to stop NFTs, which like people already don't like, and to stop big business exploiting them, because like that'll makes it sound good, and you'll wind up with things like, there's some articles that are out there. I saw someone mention one of them in chat they kind of just picked up that talking point and reported on it, and are just like,
BS,
there was an article that was like, D&D makes some moves to protect from NFTs or something like that.
That's wrong.
And
that's clickbait.
that is just like kind of just the spin that
That's a spin. That's
Wizards put on it. It is obviously good spin, since a bunch of articles, or at least some articles, picked up on that. But
yeah, if you want to come out with a Goblin NFT, there's nothing Hasbro can do about it. If you want to come out with a Beholder NFT, well, then you're going to get sued because they own that. So that's total BS, by the way. And they're like, oh, well, someone could use the OGL and come out with the D&D NFT. Not really. So that's BS, by the way. Now here's where it gets very interesting. So everything so far sounds kind of okay. It's like, all right, that sounds about the same, except a few extra things. First of all, if you make more than $50,000 a year in sales, you need to report your earnings to Wizards and tell them how and why and what you're making. And also, if you make more than $750,000 in sales, you need to pay royalties. And you know what? That might not sound like a lot, or maybe it sounds like a lot, but these companies don't make that much. A couple companies make millions, but even they say it's like, oh, this will affect 20 companies or less. Yeah, but you know what? I guarantee, and it's funny because Critical Role's already going their own way. Critical Role is probably going to stop using D&D because why would they want to? I mean, they're going to probably do some special deal with them to make sure everyone gets theirs. But why would you want to give a royalty to WotC on something that should be open? And the thing is that right now, if you use the OGL, you get to use the rules for D&D. That's basically the trade-off. Trade-off is you get to use the rules and you get to use these certain terminologies and then nothing, and you can use our, that's it. So 1.1 is, okay, you're going to get a stamp, a creator product badge from us. And in return, you need to report everything you're selling and pay us a fee if you're making too much money. Well, why would anyone do that? So that's what I'm waiting for. I want to see. They're going to have to make some pretty big incentives.
Like if they heavily promote that badge,
correct.
Then, but that's going to be a lot of effort and work and money for them that I don't think they're going to want to put in.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, why would I switch over? If everything's backwards compatible, I'll just use OGL 1.A. Why would I
just make sure not to reprint exactly any of the new things from 1D&D?
Yeah. I mean, why would I go over? Why would I switch? So,
one of the reasons that you might switch is if you don't understand the law and you think that you can't use 1.0A because they updated it, right?
Yeah, that's actually the biggest issue is that a
lot of people don't understand what their legal rights are,
correct.
So they'll believe it if something says something.
Correct. That's something that's, unfortunately, I think Wizards is not thinking for the next 2 or 3 or 5 years. They're thinking 10, 20, 30 years down the line when people, this is just standard. Like, oh yeah. The same way as that you tell people, there used to be a company called TSR that owned and created Dungeons and Dragons. People are like, what? Wizards of the Coast didn't always own it? And believe it or not, a lot of people don't know that. It's kind of amazing. But yeah, and that's something will happen is that eventually 20 years from now, people will be like, oh yeah, I just automatically, if I want to put something up and share with my friends, I put it onto the 1D&D ecosystem, pay them my 30%, and I can then sell my content to anyone and share with my friends, and D&D takes their cut. And that's standard, right? It's like, that's what they want. They're looking at the very, very long term.
So, Steven.
Yes.
I'm about to make our stream a whole lot
Did it come out?
So no, but and I stress for everyone who is watching this, if you ever hear someone say they got something from an anonymous source, that you should like be very suspicious of it and not just take it for granted that it's accurate. But I got from an anonymous source while we were streaming some of the texts from OGL 1.1.
Really?
That is coming out. Yes. And you can you check it when it actually comes out and you'll see if this is the exact same text, because I don't know for sure. It could be like that they changed to another version, but this is supposed to be the version that was rumored to come out today. And just as you predicted, Stephen, it says in there, this agreement is, along with the OGL non-commercial, an update to the previously available OGL 1.0a, which is no longer an authorized license agreement. It does have some other things from the GSL. It then says we can modify or terminate this agreement for any reason whatsoever, provided we give 30 days notice.
Oh, I knew it.
We will provide notice of any such changes by posting the revisions on our website and by making public announcements through our social media channels. It also says you agree to give us a non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use your content for any purpose. And apparently some other stuff, but like I don't have the whole thing. I just have an excerpt.
So someone you trust?
Yes, I trust this anonymous source. I trust this anonymous source. I trust who the person is.
I believe you. You and I know.
And while they didn't tell me how
you
they
and I
got
know
it,
enough people. I believe you.
Yeah. While they didn't tell me how they got it, I know who they are in contact with, and I have a very strong suspicion.
I also
of where
believe 1.1 is out to certain people if they signed NDA, and it has been out for a couple weeks. I actually know, I'm 99% sure it's actually been out for a while. It just hasn't been publicly announced to anyone. So just so by what authority can they revoke 1.0a? Simple. If you sign up for 1.1, you then agree you can no longer publish anything else. So they can revoke it from you. They can't revoke it from everyone. There's a way around that, though. What you do is you make a subsidiary company, and you use that company to publish one D&D material, and then keep your other company for 1.0a. Although there's probably a provision in there for that, but yeah. There's I'm just putting on my lawyer hat of how I would get around these things. Yeah, this is pretty standard stuff. So, long story short, it sounds like it's going to be as bad as I thought it would be, if not worse, is that they can change it at will, that they, yep, it does look pretty bad, Ollie, is that they can change it at will. You can't use 1.0a anymore. You can only publish for one D&D. Is there anything good in there? Does it say like what they give you or only what they took away? Mark?
I only got a few snippets.
Oh, okay.
They may not like.
Yeah.
These come down through different channels or whatever.
Got it.
So, but
so it's basically GSL 2.0, which I kind of figured. Like, they're calling it the open gaming license. I have a feeling this is not going to be that open. I have a feeling they're calling it, and that's an old trick. It's like, oh yeah, it's the open gaming license, except it's not open at all. But they're not going to change it. The same reason they're like, oh, it's D&D. Well, it's not 6th edition. It's just D&D. It's 6th edition. You know, it's anyhow. So here we go. Now we got questions galore. So would it affect, no, it will not affect Paizo in any way, because they are not going to publish. So they're just going to be using 1.0a forever.
Well, I mean, if it was legal, what their claims that it removes and just completely replaces 1.0a, then, that would affect everybody who's under 1.0a.
But they can't revoke 1.0a.
Yeah, no, they can't. But they claim to have revoked it in 1.1. So if it actually stood up, which it doesn't, because 1.0a says it can't be revoked, then it would affect everybody, including people who are putting out anything under 1.0a, right? If
Well,
what they
you
were
could still
what they were claiming
use-
was correct, which we know that we've seen. I mean, not only have we read 1.0a, you can find Wizards' own FAQ that Morris put it out, not just about digital, but also about whether they can revoke it or change it. Where they had a question. The question was like, could Wizards potentially change the terms to something I don't like on me? And then it said, well, you know, we can put out a new one, but you could just keep using the old one. So we're not going to ever change it to something that nobody wants to follow because the old part is not revocable. Then they pointed to the term, the contract that meant that. So from their own FAQ, it's not revocable, so it won't affect. It shouldn't affect
I think
anyone
you can
else.
use 1.0 if you wanted to. You just have to use the old SRD. That's the thing.
I mean, that's what you said, and that's what we said, and that is what OGL 1.0 says, but that's not what 1.1 says.
Doesn't mean it's true. That's something else. So
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
No,
Let me tell you,
1.1 is saying that, but it's not necessarily. It's not actually accurate to 1.0. But if it was right, if 1.1 was accurate, then it would have lots of implications for everyone.
Whatever. Here's let me tell you this little story. Hey, rules lawyer, is it verified? I'll tell you in a second, rules lawyer.
I mean, I
actually wanted you on the show, rules lawyer.
I wouldn't say that it's a 100% verified. It is apparently
like
it is a leaked version of the one that was supposed to come out today. So
yeah, and it's
possible they'll change it. Maybe they heard feedback that there were issues and they'll change it before the final version. So I will say that it may have come through multiple steps before it got to me, but I'm trusting of the information that I received to the extent I received it. Obviously, it's not final until you see it published to everybody.
So let me quickly just mention a few things while you read through that a little bit more, Mark. First of all,
I'll read through a little bit more. I don't have the whole thing. So
my best friend, who I've known since 10th grade, is a contract lawyer who went to Cornell and Columbia. He's a real idiot. My other good friend is a partner at the world's largest law firm, and I have a few more lawyer friends. They're either contract or patent or copyright attorneys. So I actually do indirectly know this stuff pretty well. I have worked in the past with very large brands. I made Tetris clones for Disney online and other games, and I went through those games and with the Disney lawyers. So for example, in US law, you cannot copyright game systems. It has actually been held up, I believe, by the Supreme Court. So if you wanted to come out with a version of Monopoly, as long as you don't call Monopoly and you don't use any Monopoly terminology or anything from Monopoly, you can. And there's nothing they can do about it. That's also why there's like so many different versions of Chutes and Ladders and things like that. You can do that. There's nothing they can do about it. So that is important to know. So that's one of the issues with them having some difficulty, them being Hasbro, and being able to enforce people from reusing D&D rules. They can't. They can enforce you not using the words D&D and the terms like Beholder and Mind Flayer and things like that, because they own those. But otherwise, you can come out with rule sets that basically mimic D&D, just use very different terminology. So that's something to keep in mind.
People who keep asking about whether it's the final version, again, we don't know if it's the final version, but it is very recent.
Okay.
Apparently, it is a blazingly recent version from like days ago at most. So
the other thing is that, for example, and I'm sure anyone in America has done this. So I'm sure you've been to these places where you sign away your rights. Like you go to an amusement park or you go to, like one of those gyms, and it's like, whenever you join a gym or you join places of karate or whatever, and you're like, if you get hurt, you can't sue us. You sign away all your rights. Yeah, you can't do that. That's actually against the law. People don't know that. And there's nothing, you can't sign away your rights. You can sign that. In fact, sign away. There's nothing they can do. What they hope is that if you do get hurt, you don't know your rights, and then they say to you, hey, listen, we'll give you $50,000 because you got hurt here. But then you can sign away your rights. After you take a settlement, you can sign away your right to sue. But they can't threaten you. They can't say, hey, you signed this agreement saying you can't sue us even though you got hurt here. So I'll tell you what, we'll settle you for 50 grand even though we weren't supposed to. And then you settle for 50 grand. No, you can't sign away your rights. It's not something you can do. If you get hurt, it's their responsibility in American law. Just because you sign these things doesn't mean that's what the law is. Which is what I think they might be going with this OGL thing. It's like, oh yeah, well, if you do this, you can't use OGL. Well, no, that's probably not true. And what does that mean for the future battles that someone wrote? Well, I'll have my lawyers take a look at this. That's what I'm going to do. I have a lot of lawyer friends. I have a lot of lawyer friends. I talk to them almost every day, and they will let me know. I have a feeling I do a lot of publishing for Paizo products, so I'm not that concerned. Let's see. Hey, Ronald is writing us.
Yeah, I would say that it almost seems common as a legal tactic to put unenforceable stuff in contracts and licenses.
In America, they do
just so that, and just because people don't know about it. I've heard that a lot of companies put an unenforceable non-compete in their hiring contract because of the fact that most people don't know that they can compete, so they just don't compete.
Yeah, in fact, I had a non-compete when I sold my company, and it was for the planet Earth. And later when I left, I sued them because it didn't allow me to work anywhere. And my lawyer said, yeah, that's called slavery. You can't do that. And I won. I went to court and won because you can't just but they make you sign it just because you sign it. And yes, you got to go to court. And yes, it took a year and a half. This is not something that's fun, trust me. But most people don't have the wherewithal or the time to do this sort of stuff. So this is just scare tactics. Now, I want to see what the final one is. If it's as bad as it is,
I only have those two excerpts.
I have a feeling we're going to be getting 10,000 videos talking about this, and everyone's going to be saying doom and gloom in the end of Hasbro. And
even just the part where they can make changes at any time and only give you 30 days notice.
Yeah.
When you have print products that you've already put out that may not follow the new one is like pretty troubling. Even if they change it and you like the other terms that it currently says, if they can change it at any time, that seems
and
like
also
it's
it says
gonna cause
here
some issues.
Okay, so you own the new and original content you create. You agree to give us a non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use that content for any purpose.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So basically, they're like, you own everything, but so do we. And we can do anything we want with your content and make as much money and do anything we want with it forever. Now, that is interesting because the D&D, the GM's Guild, the reason people like the GM's Guild is because it gets a lot of reach. However, there's a couple problems with GM Guild. One, you lose 50% of your income because Wizards take a cut, and then the open, the publisher of GM's Guild takes a cut. And also, anything you publish in GM's Guild, WotC owns. You don't own it. They own it forever. So here's an interesting little loophole if this is true. You own it, and they license it from you forever for free. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to do that. Now, how do they get around this? I'll tell you how. because there's also licenses that people can sign for the big boys, like anyone who's making, $250,000, $500,000, $1 million. They like, oh, well, we'll let you sign an agreement where whenever we publish something, you'll get a cut. But it's, they're hoping to own everything. God, it's basically DM Guild for everyone. What does that mean? Would I publish stuff that if they would own, they would have to own a piece of it forever? I don't know. I'd have to go through my lawyers and see what they say. It's like would they own it? It really will be interesting, because if you come out with individual rules like a new ancestry or a race or a class, what can they do with that? How much money could they possibly make off of that? I don't think you can make as much as you can think. However, what happens if you do something like, I don't know, come up with something called Forgotten Realms, or come up with a character called Drizzt, or things like that? That's where it gets tricky, because they're more interested in intellectual property, they being Hasbro, and things like worlds and god systems and things like that they can reuse and make money off of. Think about Ed Greenwood. He sold Forgotten Realms, I think, for like 12,000 or 4,000, 8,000, something like that. It was around that. It's like $12,000. Think about that. He sold the rights for everything. Now, that was a lot of money back then. This was like in the late 80s, early 90s. So, he did okay, but they've made millions, a billion, tons, hundreds of millions. But think about, even this happened recently, the original creators of Superman, they sold the rights. I believe it was $300. And now, again, this was in the 30s, so that was a lot of money back then. But Superman is the most published comic in the history of the world. One Piece is number 2, and quickly catching up, by the way. The people who created Superman actually sued DC a few years ago, claiming they want their money back. They wanted to have some of their money, saying that was a crappy agreement, and they owe millions of dollars to them. They lost. It's too bad. That's what happens when you sign away. Who would have known, in the 30s that what Superman would become? But that's what happened. But yeah, they're basically trying to prevent a Critical Role. Because think about Critical Role. They have that Amazon series. None of that Amazon money goes to WotC. None of it. And yes, there is the Tal'Dorei, not the Tal'Dorei setting, it's their other setting. That does very well. That's the one that Critical Role came out with. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'm sure someone in chat will mention it shortly, but there is a Critical Role setting that WotC published. I'm sure it was a 50-50 split, and they did very well with that setting. Now WotC will own everything, and they could just do whatever they want with it, if this is true. And if this is true, I can imagine. I can't imagine. Yeah, Wildmount. I can't imagine this is true. I believe this is true, but if this is true, the world is going to explode. So, if this is true, Mark is really quiet.
You can't imagine that it was true.
Oh, I can imagine it's true.
That it's true.
I imagine it's true, but even
I think this is a reliable source.
Then, wow, God, why would anyone publish under this? Why would anyone want to publish where
if they think because Steven, the thing that you dislike about it the most, and that arguably is a real or one of the things that's really, I guess there's multiple things that are bad in what I've seen in terms for being a publisher, but one of the things that seems most negative to me is their claim that it supersedes the previous one, which seems to be demonstrably untrue based on the text of 1.0 and their own FAQs about 1.0. But if people don't know that it's not true because they didn't read 1.0 and they didn't see that FAQ that Wizards themselves put out, then they might believe they have no choice, right?
Oh yeah,
if
yeah,
it
yeah.
says they have no choice, you ask why would anyone do it, and the answer is because a lot of people don't know the law, and so they might think that they have to.
Well, I'll tell you, if it's still going to be compatible with 5.0, I mean, everyone will just stick with 1.0a. And I know they're saying, oh, well, can't publish under
everyone,
1.0.
You mean everyone who realizes that they can stick with 1.0a.
Yeah, but people who make money and have their livings off of this are going to realize. I mean, they're going to... I won't say anything, but when I was at Gen Con, I was talking to other creators, and they were all saying that if WotC revoked the OGL or did something this draconian, they were going to gang together and there were going to be consequences. And I'm very interested. I'm going to contact those people to see what they were planning. But supposedly there was a secret plan. I feel like the Rebel Alliance going on saying that they were gonna all battle against it. And oh man, I don't know, man. I mean, you know, we do a lot of... There's a reason why I do a lot of Pathfinder content as well as 5e, because it's like, well, if 5e dies, at least I can still do Pathfinder stuff. Yeah, D&D support for 5e will be dropped. Yeah, they want everyone to go into their walled garden. They want everyone to go into one D&D. And as I said earlier before you interrupted me, Mark, is that why would anyone use 1.1 if all you get is a sticker? I mean, it's like, oh, you get a sticker. Well, what else do you get? It's a really nice sticker. Well, what else do you get? Did we mention the sticker? I mean, it's like, that's it? That's all you get? And what do you get in return?
It's because they claim that you have to.
I know. But my point is like, what do you get? It's like, well, let's see. You got to report all your earnings to us. You got to tell everything you do to us. Oh, yeah, you license everything you do to us forever, for free, for life in the world, anywhere in the world, and you get a sticker. Damn. Now that's hubris, if I must say. Wow. I guess I wonder if a new version of... Well, that's what Morris and those guys are trying to do with Level Up, because Level Up was trying to be a Pathfinder for 5e. So that could be the option. I'd be curious to see if people then say, well, screw this, I'm going to Level Up instead, because that's basically D&D, 5.5, which is what they tried to do. I haven't read the rules for Level Up personally. I have the books, and half of our writers are the guys who wrote Level Up. You know that, right, Mark? So we actually know everyone who wrote Level Up.
Yeah, I know that. I've mentioned it before, too.
Yeah. Well, the point is, it's like literally the guys who wrote Level Up write our content. So we have a good inside info there. So maybe our futures will be doing Level Up instead of D&D. Who knows? But
you never know.
Yeah, which is...
Like, it all depends on what exactly happens.
Yeah. Holy moly.
Yeah.
So, here, I'll reply.
There's a lot going on here. Apparently there's more to this. Like, obviously wait until you see the final 1.1, but it seems like it's kind of going to be telling you that you have to use 1.1, and that it may be the case that they're telling you have a time limit, as well as like you only have this long to accept one. It's definitely interesting. I want to make sure that like maybe it all came out while we... No, I don't see it. So
well, I'm on Reddit, and if it would come out, I think it would be on Reddit as fast as possible. So,
yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so but like maybe it's coming out soon.
And I told all my friends, they said immediately if it comes out to text me.
Great. So you'll just get it anyway. But
well, I should get it. I told everyone, and to be honest, I'm looking everywhere. I'm looking on Twitter. I'm looking at Reddit. I don't see it listed anywhere. So
yeah, well, then I guess you heard those little snippets here first. But
Oh my God.
yeah,
I still
I
can't
don't
believe,
know.
and I've been pretty negative, but even I am stunned by the absolute gall if this is true. This is like stunning if this is true. And
Yeah, I
I've
don't
been,
know.
man, even on,
I don't know. But I trust that this information is from the latest version. So I don't know if anybody's like what's going to happen moving forward. But I think this is to me there's pretty much no chance that this source is unreliable. So it would only change if like Wizards themselves had decided to change it since like very recently, right? So that's this is worse than I expected, because I thought that the GSL was unsuccessful to the point that they wouldn't actually reinstitute some of those old terms from it moving forward. But this seems to have pretty much everything that was in the GSL again, except for that it was given a much smarter sheen and PR by claiming, instead of saying we're getting rid of the old one and we're putting in this new one and you have to accept it and when you do, you can't use the old one, to just say you can't use the old one no matter what you do. You have to use this new one. And it's just, this is the OGL. And then they put out the press release being like, don't worry, everyone's worrying, but not much is going to change. And of course, it seems like a lot is going to change despite that. So I feel like they're marketing it and putting a spin on it better than they did for the 4E GSL, but it looks like
I guarantee
it's just going to have a lot of what was in the GSL.
And not only that, they're probably going to be like, yeah, we own all your content and we can license it, but we'll be cool, man. Like, we will talk to you before we use it and we'll make sure that you're informed and we'll work with you. And they can say all that, but unless it says it there, that is just talk. They don't need to do any of that. I guarantee here's another prediction of mine. When they come out with the OGL, if this is true, there's going to be an FAQ, and the FAQ is going to be like, well, it says we can use it. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean we're going to. We're just putting that in to protect us. Don't worry about that. It's fine. It's cool. We're all friends here, man. You're supporting us. We're supporting you. Don't worry about the fact that we own everything that you do forever. It's actually, they're very smart. They didn't say they own it. They license it from you. So you still own it, but they can use it whenever they want, forever, for free. So,
I mean, they already were able to use open content in the 1.0 version, anything designated as open content, just because everybody could. And Wizards was part of everybody. But in this new one, it seems like they will be able to use the entirety of it. Any new and original content, including your IP. So, for example, if you were publishing under this and you were Critical Role and you published that book that you mentioned, Stephen, that had their lore and the rules. That particular term, and I don't have the entire thing, so maybe there's something else in there that speaks to that, but that particular term seems to me that Wizards is now able to just use the entire setting of Critical Role.
Yes, for free.
At any time, for any reason, for free.
Yes.
The moment that Critical Role, if they had chosen to publish their book under that 1.1 license.
Which also
Whereas with 1.0, they could say the rules are open, anybody can use those, but this lore of our world is not. It's product identity. That's a term that is defined in 1.0 as something that you don't get openly from the license.
By the way, a lot of people were very confused by why do you need to report, hey John, why on earth would you need to report earnings of $50,000 if they don't care, if they're not taking the money? And I was thinking about that a lot too, because I'm like, yeah, why would anyone care? And they're like, well, they want to see what's selling. And okay, that makes sense. Again, why do they care? And now I know why, because if they're like, this one product seems to be doing really well. Yeah, it's not hitting the $750,000 mark, but it's consistently doing 200,000-300,000 at a time. Maybe we should look into it, and maybe we should publish something about it. Like, it gives them an idea of the pulse of the market and who's doing what. And damn, that it's starting to all make a little bit more sense. Okay, so for anyone who came late, because I see a lot of people are coming in now, supposedly we got a leak of the OGL 1.1. I posted what we have. Basically, it says the leak that we have here is that this agreement, along with the OGL non-commercial. Ooh, non-commercial, interesting. So there's got to be a commercial version too. An update to the previous available OGL 1.0a, which is no longer an authorized licensed agreement. We can modify or terminate this agreement for any reason whatsoever, provided we give 30 days notice. We provide notice of any such changes by posting the revisions on our website and by making public announcements through our social media channels. You own the new and original content you create. You agree to give us a non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use that content for any purpose. So, breaking out what little we have, they're trying to say that OGL 1.A is dead and that you have to use this. This is also the non-commercial version of the OGL, which means there's probably a commercial version of the OGL. They're giving their bigger fish and their bigger boys that they don't want to burn any bridges, and maybe they do actually share some of the wealth with them, like Cobalt Presses and Critical Roles of the world, because they're big enough that they could actually hurt WotC even indirectly. It says that they can modify this whenever they want for any reason within 30 days, and that you own everything you create, but we also get a non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use your content for any purpose, which means that you own it and you can actually license it to other people as much as you want, but we own it as well and can use it.
Or they don't own it, but they can just use it however they want.
Yes, they can use it however they want. Now, that would be interesting because that doesn't necessarily mean they can change it. I'd have to see the full
Change
OGL.
your contents?
Yeah, well, like, just because they own it doesn't mean, it's like saying, okay, well, like, oh, we own Eldamon. I'm like, or we can use Eldamon in our games. I'm like, well, depending. It's like, that depends how we define it. And it's like, okay, maybe you can use our specific Eldamon, but you can't make new ones. It depends.
Or what we could do is, if the open content is like the move set, the special attacks that they have, but if we said that like the name and likeness of the Eldamon, the specific Eldamon was product identity, because like so that way it would be similar to like in Pokemon, if Pikachu and a picture of Pikachu were identity, but you could use Thunder Shock and Thunder and all those attacks to make a new Pokemon of your choice. So that's a possibility with OGL 1.0. But I think what WotC is saying there is that they can just do whatever they want, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they just do whatever they want
with any of your contents.
Yes and no. I want to see the
only
rest.
They can. Only Wizards can. It's not that everybody now.
I want to see.
With 1.0, everybody can use the open content.
Yeah, and I want to see the full OGL before that.
Yeah,
because it's like you can't just say, oh, we own it all, and then they just own everything. It's like, no, that's not how that works. I've worked with Fortune 500 companies for 30 years. I work with big brands. I've worked with Disney. I work with Timon and Pumbaa. I've worked with Harry Potter. I know what you're allowed to use and what you can't use. I've been down this road many, many times. I really want to see this contract to see what it says. Wow, we're very popular right now. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more. Definitely like. It would definitely help us out because we got like almost 100 people on now. Yeah, I guess the word spread, Mark. Everyone's like, oh, OGL.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people talked about the OGL, but not a lot of people have quotes from it. So
It seems
I
like
think that's why people are coming in here.
it seems like an enthusiastic lawyer overreach. Yeah, I don't think it's overreach. I think they are just going to assume that people, again, this is very, very, very common in
I mean,
America.
the GSL came out with terms that were very similar to this as a real license.
Let me give you another.
Third parties didn't take it, but
so let me give you another real world example of how American companies like to screw you over. If you are delayed on your airline, okay, not delayed. So you know that if you ever fly and people are like, "Oh, we overbooked," and you can, take a ticket and we'll give you $300 if you give up your seat. No, legally they have to give you either $1,200 or 4 times what your ticket cost, whichever is less. So let's just say, just for to make things easy, it comes to $1,200. Your ticket was $300 or $1,200. So you have to be offered $1,200. However, if the airline says, "Hey, everyone, we need to bump you, we'll give you a $300 voucher." Nope. Someone could say it and say, "Oh, okay, you accept it? Fine. Here's your $300 voucher. Sign this, by the way, which says you give up your rights to the $1,200. You can do that. That is legal. Can they say to you, "Oh, by the way, here's $300, even though legally you're supposed to get $1,200? Yes, they can do that. Because just because you don't know the law and you don't know your rights doesn't mean they can't screw you. So why is that important? Well, I have a feeling we're going to all be learning law very shortly. Oh, wait. Knights of Last Call. Tear it all down and start playing. What's a PBTA? I know what Legends of the Five Rings is. What's PBTA? Do you know what that is, Mark?
Powered by the Apocalypse.
Oh, Powered by the Apocalypse. I've never played. Everyone talks about it. I know Powered by Apocalypse is crazy popular. Crazy popular. Man, what does that mean? You see, there's no way this is enforceable. Because think about all these games that are using 5th edition rule sets. Like, there's the new Doctor Who. There's the, Dark Realms? Not Dark Realms. You guys know what I'm talking about. Not Elden Ring, but they came out with, there's all these new rule sets of all these new role-playing games that have been coming out that use 5.0. They can't just say, "Oh, yeah, you can't do that anymore." These are huge, these are huge companies. It's like you can't just stop saying, "Up, you can't do that." And we own, by the way, now we own the ability to publish Doctor Who whenever we want, because let's just do the math here. Let's just see if this is enforceable. Okay, I published Doctor Who using the Doctor Who license from BBC, and I'm publishing under OGL 1.A, and I am publishing my version of Doctor Who using Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rule set. So far, so good. Oh, by the way, you no longer can use 1.0A as of now. Now you have to use 1.1, and we own everything that you do as a sub-license, which includes Doctor Who. No. You don't just magically have the ability to transfer licenses as sub-licenses. I know that for an absolute fact. You can't do that. So this is beyond, I think, unenforceable. I think 90% of this OGL will be scare tactics. And that is probably a loophole around it, is that you come up with another company, you license your content to yourself or through another company, put in a sub-license agreement saying that you cannot use this in any other shape or form or anyone else can use it, which would then negate WotC's ability to sub-license it. I don't know if anyone followed what I just said. I'm just trying to think of how I would do this if I was a lawyer, but that's how you do it. Because what happens if you come out with a Timon and Pumbaa or a Disney or a Harry Potter system? You can't just say, oh, yeah, you came out with in 5th edition, now we own it too, and we can come out with our own Harry Potter stuff. Too bad. No, that's not how that works. I guarantee, like, yeah, people like me might not, like, be able to do anything about it, but people like Harry Potter or the BBC or any of these big boys, they are not going to roll over. They are not going to take it and allow WotC just to publish their own content, and they don't get a piece of the pie. So I don't see how any of this is really enforceable. Anyhow, that's just me rambling.
No, I think I think it seems pretty clear from basically everyone's interpretation of OGL 1.0a, including WotC's own interpretation of it, that they put in an FAQ back in the day, that it is definitely not enforceable to make changes to it and then claim that you can no longer use the other one, because that directly contradicts what they said before at the very least. Now, the question someone mentioned in chat is, like, will they try to go after people for using 1.0a as a way to try to shore that up? And I would say probably not, if they know that it's unenforceable, which, if it is, like you said, Stephen, more of a tactic and they know it's unenforceable, then they're not going to go after anyone because they know that they'll lose, right?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I found out who did the leak, by the way. And yeah, I do know who that is, and it's pretty reliable.
Oh, you found out?
Yeah. I found out because they just wrote me too. So
okay. Yeah, pretty reliable, right?
Yeah, it's pretty reliable. So, but
like
then
I
again,
said,
this could be a previous version. We don't know.
I heavily trust the information. The only some of the reasons that I put qualifiers up there is that obviously it didn't come out today like people were expecting, right? So Wizards could have changed it again since the last time anybody has seen it. So that means it could be wrong if they make other adjustments before they eventually release it. But I certainly trust that it's correct to the best of the current knowledge.
So, yeah, the FAQs aren't legally bounding. Yeah, the FAQ doesn't mean anything. Forget about it, FAQ. I'll tell you about the actual... Yeah, the more I'm thinking about this, and the more I'm thinking about, like, they can't do what they're trying to do. And there's ways around... I'm just thinking the way around it is basically... is that you have a third-party company. So I come out with a company called Eldamon Inc., and they come out with the rules of Eldamon. And they come out with all the rules and the subsystems and everything, and then they own everything. And you get a little thing called the copyright from the United States government, which I do have for all my books. And then you say, okay, I own this. Then you license that to Roll for Combat, and you say in the license that no one else can use it, not even WotC. And then you use the OGL, and then WotC says, oh, this is doing great, I want to use it. It's like, nope, you might want to, but I got a competing agreement, and you're going to have to figure it out, and we'll see what happens. That's how I'd get around it, and that's what I'm going to ask my lawyers, because there's no way they can just own everything outright. It's impossible. I don't care what it says. So, anyhow, well, this went very different. I didn't expect quite so much in such a short period of time. If anyone has any questions, because we got a ton of people on here, feel free to let me know, and I will be happy to answer them. Let's see. Oh yeah, my source and your source are not exactly the same. I have a separate source, so by the way. So maybe this is true. Now keep in mind, supposedly, as I said...
Oh wait, so yeah, like if these are from different sources that lends even more weight to it.
Yeah. I have someone else who wrote me and said, "Oh, that sounds right." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Because I have a feel. What I heard also is that it's actually been released in NDA form to some of the big, like they said, "Oh, there's only 20 companies." Those 20 companies, I believe, have it. I
Oh
guarantee
wait, so they don't have the commercial one?
I
Like
bet
you
you
were
they
saying,
have
this is
both. I bet you
this
they
is
have
non.
both.
Oh, I see. They have the non-commercial and the commercial, so
Probably.
they can see if the one for the big honchos is like
Well, because
juicier,
usually a
like you said.
commercial, well, usually there'll be subsets, so you can't usually release one without the other.
Oh yeah, that makes sense because otherwise, how could you compare? And they would refer to each other, so they wouldn't be complete without.
So
seeing
Juno's
the thing
asking,
that was
wouldn't you be
referred
the
to.
one who gets in hot water if you publish using two competing licenses? No, that's not how it works, actually. That's for, as they say, that's for the courts to decide. I've had this happen, and this is not an accident, where I've been down this road too many times. You will have an agreement. Let's just say, I'm going to give you a very simplified example. You have two agreements you have to sign. And in theory, the agreements are supposed to be identical. You show up at the signing, and one agreement is exactly the same, and one agreement is not exactly the same. And if you sign, if this is why your lawyers have to read the agreements at the signings, because I've had it where they do this and they change them, and it's happened more than once. And then you're like, let's just say you accidentally do sign it, and now you're like, oh, you signed the agreement, and then you go to court and you're like, well, the two agreements, they're supposed to be the same, but that's not what you signed. You have two agreements with two different things, one that benefits you, one that benefits the other people. Which is correct? That is what the courts are to decide. It's usually the one that is less restrictive, by the way. That is the default for the courts. It's not the overarching, we own everything worldwide forever. It's the one of which is the more reasonable one, is usually the one that will win if you have two competing agreements, because I've had this happen to me. So there you go. How much would Paizo sweat with all of this? Paizo uses their own OGL.
Or Paizo has their own license that
Correct.
third-party companies can do for Paizo.
Right.
But obviously, Pathfinder, right, is using OGL 1.0A to get terms like magic missile and things like that in the game. So now, if 1.1 was right that you can no longer use 1.0A, that would be a problem for everybody who's using 1.0A. But it seems very clear that it's not correct when it says that you can't use 1.0A anymore. So it shouldn't affect anybody other than if that would mean that, like, for example, Paizo, like, it would be problematic for them to put out AP conversions into 1D&D or something that actually did require 1.1, potentially, depending on, I mean, as you said, Stephen, you don't technically necessarily need the license if you don't reproduce certain aspects of it. So they could keep putting out APs anyway that we're mostly using the 5e stuff. And since the two are supposed to be compatible, it probably would work, I imagine. But we'll have to see what happens moving onward.
And also someone, Polar Bear Bar, cool name. How would this affect Paizo plan to release 5e? It won't, because they'll just use 1.0a. It won't affect them. So, and let's see, Ollie. They can put what they like into a contract, but you don't have to sign it. Correct. And they can't retroactively, although I am curious how they were able to retroactively make 1.0 and 1.0a. I'd have to look into that a little bit more. It probably has to do with the SRD. Now, what they probably can do is say, oh, you can use 1.0a, but then the SRD is gone, and say, oh, there's no more SRD, so you can keep using 1.0a, but the SRD is gone, so you can't use anything. That might be legal. That might be possible, that they destroy the SRD, and then you... That actually could be a possibility. But then, you know what happens? You use ancestry instead of race or species. You know, instead of magic missile, I guess we're just going to come up with
force missile.
Plan
Force
A.
Missile.
That's what we call it. We call that Plan A.
You can call it Force Missile.
Force
the
Missile.
Pathfinder Adventure card game does not, like, because it's a card game, I think it doesn't have the same age, so the OGL spell names, and they have a whole bunch of names for some common spells, and they use Force Missile for something that looks to me very similar to Magic Missile, but it's called Force Missile. It's its own thing.
Yep. You know what? It's not as big a deal as you think, because, like, as someone who just, by the way, I finished the layout for Jewel the Indigo Isle, more or less. I'm just waiting for some maps, and I have to do the appendix, but I actually finished basically it yesterday, which I couldn't believe. I was like, that's it. It's done. Kind of. Don't you wish you were on this show, Derek? You always miss the juicy ones. So what's Hasbro's play here? Why GCL 2.0? Do they just think they're too big to fail? Yeah, I actually do. Think about it. Most people, the majority of people, are using DM's Guild, and they already own everything in DM's Guild. There's probably only 20 companies they care about right now, and they're probably giving them a commercial version of the OGL 1.0, not the non-commercial. So they're using a different license, which, interestingly, I wonder if it will even be public, and it will even something they'll have to put in their books. So we might never even see it, which will be its own interesting wrinkle in all of this. I bet you it might not be public, so we won't even know what's in that license. As for what they hope is, well, they hope this becomes the norm. Remember that thing called horse armor? Remember how everyone went insane going, oh my God, why would I spend $3.99 for armor for my horse? And now, standard, everyone does it. Everyone's just like, yeah, of course you buy stuff in game and, in-game content. That's just standard. And they're thinking, well, it's going to be kind of rough for a couple years, and hopefully we're going to come out with one D&D and come out with this cool system, and we'll allow you to publish within our closed ecosystem, and you'll be able to make money off of it, and we'll be able to make money off of it. And hey, you're already used to that. That's how Apple works, and Google works, and Steam works, and everyone works this way. So what's one more system? And hey, you're going to be in our ecosystem. Think of all the money you'll make. So I think that's kind of what they're going to be doing. So, and do I think they're too big to fail? They're the only ones with D&D in this world, so maybe they're like, yeah. Now, what I find so weird about this is just yesterday. Was this yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Is that WotC scaled back its video game plans, costing 15 people their jobs, where they said they're going to be getting rid of most of their digital games that are in development. By the way, they own 6 video game studios. They're also trying to sell their movie and television divisions. They're getting rid of all their things. I was like, this doesn't make sense. They canceled 5 video games. Now, I'm wondering if they did that because they're putting all these people on one D&D, and they just couldn't do both. There was a choice between, okay, we either make video games or we finish one D&D in time for 2024, which is really soon. That's next year. I mean, it's really soon. I have a feeling it's more that they're canceling their games because they need everyone to work on one D&D. I think that's what's really happening, as opposed to them canceling the games because they don't think they'd make money off of them. Let's see. Yes, I'm reading so many comments now. Independent video game. Yeah, I mean, D&D will go the way of 4th edition. You know what? I don't know if it will. I just don't know, because keep in mind, well, of course, to them, they're saying, well, you can't publish 5.0 anymore, and you have to use this, but I don't know.
There is obviously similarity with the GSL, which was in 4E, but just because they're using one thing that's the same as back then doesn't mean that the market and the ecosystem is the same. They've grown bigger than they were before that. So I don't think that I don't think it's necessarily true that it'll go the way of fourth edition. They may have grown to the point, thanks to Stranger Things, Critical Role, and others, that maybe they don't need to have a vibrant third-party market to survive anymore.
No, they want to own
thrive.
it. They just say, "Oh, there's a third-party market. It's called
They could
DM's
just put
Guild."
their own marketplace on their new, you know, one D&D app that they're building that they showed in the video, and just have that be the place to do things.
Yeah, I think they want a third party market. They just want to own everything. Trust me, they don't want to get rid of it. They just want, and people already use the DM's Guild, and people love the DM's Guild. You know, that's the big difference between fourth edition and now is like fourth edition. There was no third party content place to publish things. It was like you published in print or that was it. Now you can do things digitally. Everything else. Oh, some people are worried that we're inciting panic. Now the whole community is like freaking out, Mark.
What?
I see the word is spreading and people are starting to panic based on what you found out.
It's inciting panic. Well,
I'm getting messages. I'm like, don't panic because of what we said.
Wait, hold on. Don't panic. Like I think we're staying calm here.
Yeah.
When we're
staying
talking about
calm.
it, because if anything, there's no need to panic because the OGL 1.0A is not irrevocable. So you can just keep using the OGL 1.0A.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say just don't worry.
Yep. And also, this is a different time. I'm be very curious to see, because there's a lot of big companies now that have money and will fight Hasbro. And I don't care how big Hasbro thinks they are. And I hate to break it, they're based in New York, so any lawsuits would probably happen in New York, actually, or Rhode Island, because they're also there. Well, all my lawyers are based in New York too, so because that actually comes up a lot, like where lawsuits can happen, and all the best law firms are in New York. So, God, I'm really excited to call my lawyers after this and tell them what's going on. I think they'll probably jump all over this. They want to see what's going on. They'd love to like get into. Well, lawyers are a special breed. So this is like a game to them. It's a game. It's like, and they're contract lawyers, so this is all they do. Like they love this crap.
Is this your lawyers or your friends who are?
No, this is my lawyer. This is my lawyer.
Okay.
And my friend. They're both my lawyers and my friends. And we have a good arrangement. They do legal work for me, and I do all their technology. So there you go.
That makes sense.
Yep. So it's they don't even charge me really. So, and let me tell you, they charge a lot. So it's a good arrangement for both of us. People keep accusing me like,
saying that
I'm not inciting panic.
Like, if I know, but they're right that people always say, especially when it's just speculation, that speculation could just be inciting panic. And to be honest, like, I understand that. I didn't talk about, I didn't try to say that they would do anything like this until we had this pretty concrete proof about it, right? I was a wait and see. A lot of people like, oh, they're gonna make it so they can change it at any time, like the GSL. They're gonna try to say that you have to use it, and I thought maybe not, because it didn't work for the GSL. Maybe they won't do that.
That's the last call. He's like, that usually said the term excited to call my lawyers.
Steven is a very interesting guy.
Well, this is what about you keep in mind. I talked to this guy. I share, so I have season tickets to the Mets. I've had these tickets for 30 plus years. I share them with them, and they're all lawyers. So, and these are the guys I told you about. So I see them all the time. Half the time we're talking baseball. This guy who I'm talking about, he's actually in my fantasy baseball league with me, who I've been in for like 38 years. I've known him since 10th grade. Half the time I talk to him almost every day. So to me, it's just calling him up and say, hey, by the way, I got something else for you. And he'll be like, ooh, and he'll like be excited to like look at it, because he always likes a challenge, I'll tell you. Yeah, there's so many other RPGs. You know what? It was like, what's D&D doing? They're just trying to make money, man. I mean, a good example is like, look what they're doing to Magic the Gathering. I mean, they came out with a new Magic product almost every week in the year 2022. That is insane. I mean, they're just coming out with so much. And, and they're thinking, I guarantee what they're doing is that they're saying, hey, let's look at D&D and see how much the third parties are selling. And they're adding it all up and they're putting in the spreadsheet, and they'll say, if we can get 5% of that, how much does that add to our bottom line? And if they're like, several millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, then they'll be like, yep, let's do it. In the old days, if it was like, oh, let's figure out, we'll make $1 million or $2 million, probably not worth it. Probably not worth the loss of the goodwill. But in this case, I'll put it this way, they didn't spend, what was it, like $163 million to buy, not one D&D, to buy, the D&D online version, I forget what it's called. They didn't spend all that money just so they would do nothing with it. They expect to use that product and make their money back big time. That's a lot of money, even for Hasbro. That's a lot of money to spend, and then they have to maintain it, and then they have to actually add to it. And it's as someone who makes digital products and maintains them, that is a lot of maintenance. Now, D&D Beyond, thank you. Now it gets even more interesting. I'm going to tell you why. This is a bit of a secret. Is I know people who are working on things for Hasbro. I can't say much more than that, but I know people who are working on their digital plans. Obviously they're all under NDA, but I will be curious. Just because you're under NDA, that means you can't say certain things, but that doesn't mean you can't confirm things. Let's leave it at that. So I will be curious after this to call up some of my other friends and see what they have to say, because I know people and other large companies that are helping out Hasbro working on these exact products, by the way. So because these things are too big for D&D to do internally, even with their own company, they have to go to outsource some of these, and these are very big companies. I'll leave it at that. I love it. Everyone's like D&D Beyond, D&D Beyond, D&D Beyond. It's funny, I don't understand. I used D&D Beyond. I bought it and I was like, that's it. I didn't really see what the point of it, and I kind of got rid of it. Wow, what a big difference before and after the holidays, Mark. It's like during the holidays, we'd be lucky if we got like 30 people. After the holidays, boom, 100 viewers live, no problem.
To be fair, I feel like that I feel like it helped that it was a topic that was timely and that we also didn't have that information.
Yes, it definitely did help. Hey, everyone, if you want to have the hottest news and the leakiest leaks, subscribe to Roll for Combat. And also, for those of you who are new here, welcome. If you ever wanted to play a dragon, well, now you can. And next week, supposedly, because I'm still waiting for a few things to be finalized, if you want to play a slime, you can. You see around, look, we have slimes above us. We have doppelgangers. Look at that doppelganger. Look at that mimic who turned into an oven, who's eating his own food or cooking it. Either one, not exactly sure. We have Oni here. Look at that. We got lots of cool things. You too can play these if you go to battlezoo.com.
Slime is coming out pretty soon.
Slimes, yeah, slimes. Well,
when are we shooting for?
Well, I'm actually shooting for next Monday or Tuesday.
Nice.
Because what I'm gonna do is I have it ready to go, but I have to release the Foundry module, and Foundry found something, so I just want to test it. Because once this is released, by the way, I never have to release it again. Like, once Foundry's done, it's done forever. So we just have to test it. And then I want to give myself time. And you never, ever want to release something. You want to release either on a Monday, a Tuesday, or a Wednesday. And that's it. You never release a Thursday. You never release a Friday, because if there's a bug or there's an issue, you got the whole weekend. That's bad. So you always release in the beginning of the week. That's an old trick in the in the software world. So we're looking to Monday or Tuesday next week because I can't make it now because it's already Wednesday. I'm not going to release tomorrow or Friday. So, but we're going to test, and everything else is ready. By the way, it's just sitting here, so I'm ready to go. I just want to test the Foundry module. What did you say, Derek? The OGL and the thumbnail had nothing to do with it. Hey man, I'm experimenting with thumbnails. You know, I used to put my ugly mug up there, and I was like, why do I put me up there or Mark?
Apparently, like the thumb
or
and title,
you, Derek.
thumb and title and things like that. I'm learning are like way more important than the actual video in terms of like getting people to look at your video.
Yeah, so I'm experimenting. I think it's going to be a new trend, by the way, going forward. Because what do you know? It either worked or we just got lucky or the right timing. So those of you who missed it, I posted. We got supposedly a leak from someone we trust and know of what the OGL 1.1 is. It looks a little draconian. It looks a little illegal. So, you know, it's not illegal, by the way, for them to say something that's not true. You can do that. You can completely do that. You can say, oh, this does this and this and this and this. You can say all those things just because, you know, it doesn't make it true at all. And until you go to court and find out whether or not it's true, you know, both sides can assume it is. So there you go. But anyhow, if you scroll up a bit, it basically says that the OGL 1.0A is gone. It's no longer authorized, and that you have to use 1.1, and they can modify and change it whenever they want within 30 days at will, and that any content you create, Wizards licenses for free forever and can use too. So there you go. That's supposedly what's in the new one. Now, obviously, there's going to be more than that, but I guess that's the most risque, juiciest bits. Because I imagine things like, oh, you can't use the doppelganger, or you can't use the mind flayer. That's probably not the most.
You already can't use the
I know,
mind
but I'm
flayer.
saying that's probably not the most interesting part of the OGL. So,
Sure.
so yeah, I imagine this. I imagine everyone's going to be doing this video in the next 2 or 3 days.
This is the one time that one of the times we did the video first, I guess.
Well, we did the video first when I called out when
your predictions.
My predictions
were
are
first,
100% right.
That's only because no one else did them as predictions, or at least with those predictions.
Well, they also didn't think that Wizards was this greedy. They all assumed, they're going to play nice. How bad can it be? And now I think it's going to flip, because already I saw every video I watched was like, oh my God, they're going so greedy. They're doing microtransactions up the wazoo. This is going to be a closed environment. What are they doing? And now when they see this, they're going to be like, that's it. The end of D&D as we know it. It's going to go total 180.
You think it's going to get alarmist and very hyperbole?
Yes, I think so. A, because it's clickbait, and B, I think they're going to do two things. They're going to clickbait it and say, oh my God, it's the end of D&D. And it'll be things like that. And then if they're smart, they'll do what I'm going to do, which is talk to my lawyer and say, this is in here and this and this and this is not enforceable. It can be in there, but it doesn't mean it's enforceable. So there you go. Breaking news. Oh, yeah. All right, guys. Do you have to go again in like 10 minutes more?
Yeah, because Linda's going to have her meeting.
Okay.
For
oh, man, we got 100 people. Well, everyone please like the video. It obviously helps. Start off the new year right. Do subscribe if you want to know more. I'm guarantee if OGL 1.0 is out by next week, I'll probably do this topic again.
1.1?
1.1, because I already
then we can look into more of the
specifics. Yeah, and I've already had some other people contact me about being on the show. Some of the other people we work with, they're very interested now because like.
Well, plus Steven, if it's out, like the fact that you will have called your lawyer.
Yes. Between
then and now, and that your lawyer is, you said, at a top New York firm that might be in the same jurisdiction that this would be.
Yes. Well, Hasbro's in New York. Yeah. They're also in Rhode Island, so that's the thing.
But that means that what we have to share with people
Will
next
be even
Tuesday,
more
if it's
relevant.
out, will be
Yes.
like really useful and accurate because it'll include,
I might even
like,
get him on the show if
yeah,
he's
actually, if your
interested.
lawyer was on there, that
Yeah.
would give us expert like information about it, because people have been talking about this in the chat, but a lot of people are kind of just are scared or worried,
Yeah.
putting out alarmist things, but because possibly they're alarmed. But like, I think it's important that what we're doing is just trying to explain things and get out accurate information. If we have your lawyer to
Yeah.
break
I'll
things
ask him if he can
down
do it
step by
next week.
step about some of those
Mhm.
components, that would be something I think people would really be interested in.
Yeah, I believe. See, Hasbro has offices in multiple places. And in theory, I guess they could do the litigation anywhere. They probably do it in New York because that's where their headquarters are, and that's where they do most things is in New York. So that's why it does matter. Like whenever you sign these agreements, it always says what state. Whenever you sign an agreement, it always says in there what state litigation will occur in.
That's
and,
right.
And I guarantee this somewhere in the OGL, especially the license agreement, will say what state this and laws it was regulated under. So it'll probably be New York. So you probably do want a New York attorney to give their opinion, because the laws in New York are very, very complex and very draconian compared to the rest of the country. So it's a world of difference here. Trust me, I know. So you definitely want New York attorneys. Than as opposed to like a California or Seattle attorney. So, the WotC is in Seattle, but it's not WotC, it's Hasbro, by the way. So that's what matters. Damn, I wonder if this will do anything to the stock price. Probably not, because it's too esoteric and weird. But I am curious to see what everyone has to say about this. But
So Steven,
Yes.
Hasbro may be in New York, but you are assuming that well, you said the contract always says where it's going to be done, and you're assuming that it's in New York. But a little birdie said that it might be in Washington.
It might be, but that would mean that the contract's under WotC and not Hasbro. And why would you do that? Because
I don't know, but it says this agreement contains your consent to jurisdiction in Washington state for any disputes between you and us, and your agreement that any such disputes will be resolved in individual litigation held by a judge rather than a jury.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Individual, so they don't want class action.
Right.
And judge rather than a jury.
Interesting. You can't sign away your rights like that. You can't. Again, that's not
they're
allowed.
Putting a lot of the kind of things that people think that.
No, you can't do that. That's not allowed. There's all these things they're trying to do. You can't.
It's a chilling effect because some people will think that they can sign away.
Yeah, well, this is, what doesn't matter. I'll still have my lawyer. He might not know Washington law. Let's see if I can get him on. He knows all this. He's going to do. He's going to say everything I just said. He's like, you can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do this. Yep. You can say anything you want.
Once it comes out and your lawyer is able to read the whole thing, especially, that'll be awesome. I think I'm interested on hearing it just because I've heard a lot of things about the OGL, and like I've talked to game designers and developers who are also lawyers, like Ron Lundin, who was at Paizo and is now at
WotC,
Wizards of the Coast. But I'm curious to hear also what your lawyer thinks about this, because obviously I'm not going to hear from Ron about this.
I'll see if he's available. He's unfortunately incredibly busy, but this is he loves this sort of stuff, and he's extremely charismatic, so I think he would love to do this. And plus, I don't think he's ever done a stream, so I think this would be something he would love to do.
There you go. It could be his first one.
Yes, awesome. I think he would be awesome for this. And of course, we have Ronald. We can get Ronald on. And Ronald, I think you have to.
That would be another lawyer.
Yeah, I think Ronald, you have to brush up on this law a little, but if you're still listening. But I would be interested to hear what you have to say too. But I am definitely gonna jump on the call and call up my buddy Alan and see what he has to say about all of this. Until I get to 1.0, it's probably moot, and I'll probably say nothing, because he's like, he'll say exactly, I already know what he's going to say. So, sounds unenforceable, but I want to see the 1.0.
Yeah,
sorry, the
1.1. See the whole thing, right?
That's exactly what he's going to say. I already know it because I know him. But damn. Well, tune in hopefully next week, and maybe we'll continue this discussion and actually have a lawyer on to go through this.
This was a popular topic because we had some unique insights. So
yeah.
We'll see you next week, everybody.
It did not go the way I expected. I think half the
Me
topic
neither.
I was going to talk about didn't even come up because of your breaking news, but that's okay. I don't remember what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about the royalties. I was talking about
you were going to talk more about the fact that you even told me you were going to pre-tell people that even if this contract says that it replaces the original one, that the original one can't be removed. And lo and behold, you predicted correctly that it might do that.
Well, the thing is because if you work with I've been working Fortune 500 companies for 30 years because they all all do the same thing. The funny thing is, and then I'll let you go, is I told you I've worked with like Disney, I've worked with Citibank. I work with big companies. If you work with them, they will respect you and actually not. I've actually had some of the easiest contracts I ever did was with Disney, and Disney's supposed to be a nightmare. They were easy to work with, and they're very reasonable. As long as they want to work with you and no one's trying to like really get one over, they're actually very reasonable. And that's what's interesting. And it's like here, WotC's obviously, if this is true, trying to be extremely unreasonable and bully everyone around, which is going to be fascinating to see if 1,000 Chihuahuas can beat the Doberman Pinscher. So, because that's what it sounds like that's the fight that's going to be happening very soon. So, I guess we're going to find out. So, otherwise, thanks everyone. Like, subscribe.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Glad to see you again for the Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year, everyone. And go to Spain. It's gorgeous. Amazing. Great weather.
The rain falls mainly on the plane.
That's right. Except everything was in Spanish. That's the only reason I didn't buy anything over there. And I don't speak Spanish. Otherwise, it was awesome. And great D&D and role-playing and gaming products. It was weird seeing every board game I own in Spanish, I'll tell you. All right. Talk to you guys. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.